Hello, dear watchers. Today we are here with Dr. Dilara, and this speech is about civic engagement for Muslims in our times with examples from the Prophet. So, Dr. Dilara Sayeed's story winds from Head Start to Harvard and through Chicago public schools. These experiences fuel her focus on equity, education, and positive outcomes for all residents, especially in vulnerable and invisible communities. Over the last 20 years, Dr. Dilara served as an award-winning teacher, a nonprofit executive, and an entrepreneur. She is the president of the Illinois Muslim Civic Coalition and the founder of VPeer. She also serves on 4 boards, giving back to the community, which she loves.
Assalamu alaikum and God's peace be with you, Bahar. How are you today?
I'm good. What about you?
Good, good. Your family's staying safe and
Yeah.
and healthy. Good, good. So I'm interested in hearing a little bit about you as well. So could you share a short bio? Tell us a little bit about what year of school you're in and where you go to school, because I think you've got a fascinating story as well.
Yeah. So I go to school in Science Academy of Chicago. I'm in 8th grade. I'm 13. And that's about it.
And we were talking earlier that I was an 8th grade teacher
Yeah.
many years at Kennedy Junior High School in District 203. And I think it's a very important year in a lot of different ways. And that your school is an excellent school. I visited it, know your principal, and mashallah, the community is a really strong community.
Yes,
Where will you go to high school? Will you stay at the school till 12th?
So this school goes up only until 8th grade, and inshallah, there's the selective high schools
Mm-hmm.
in Chicago, and I want to go there.
Good. Do you have one in mind?
North side.
Northside, of course, Northside Prep. It's the best school in the state.
Mm-hmm.
Mashallah, I'm sure you'll get in and you'll excel. So we're talking today about civic engagement, and I said 8th grade is a really important year. And one of the things we do in 8th grade, and you're going through this right now, is you learn U.S. history in 8th grade, and you learn civics in 8th grade, the U.S. history, U.S. Constitution, obviously strong science and strong language arts, but it all comes together. You're reading articles on American history and our struggles with justice and our work with having many different people from across the world come to this nation to live, work, pray, play, right? All of that.
Yeah.
What are you learning in U.S. history right now?
So we recently learned about like Abraham Lincoln, and what he did, and now we're just continuing from that. Like
Yeah.
we learned about how Black people fought to get more rights over the years, and which they still are. So.
Mhm, mhm, mhm. And so when you talk about civic justice, I'm so glad you're learning about Abraham Lincoln and you're learning about what Africans who would many times generations before come to this nation enslaved, right? Enslaved and in chains. And then over time, especially during the time of Lincoln, we abolished slavery with the 14th Amendment. Alhamdulillah. And then we still struggled to this day. We're still struggling with equity and justice and all of that. So, what is civic justice? It is just that. It is the struggle for everyone to have a chance to build a life. Think about why your parents came to the US, why my parents chose to come to the US. They came for a better world, a better life, right? Not just economically to make money, but to be able to be free to express their opinions, to be free to live the way that they want, to practice the way that they want, to not have someone tell them what they can and cannot do as people, right? To have fair laws. We're not saying America does all that all the time, but we're saying it's a place in the world where people are constantly trying to get there, right? And didn't this same model, in many ways, if you think of the great leaders, you start with our Prophet Muhammad, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right? He was a religious leader. He was a faith leader, but he was a civic leader. And we talked about some of his stories that we love.
Mhm.
Would you share the story that you said you loved about the prophet? And then I'll share my story.
Okay, so in school we learned that our prophet, even after the wars he fought, he had too much kindness in his heart to kill the prisoners that they got. Instead, he would ask them to teach his fellow Muslims to read and write and to let them go.
Mhm, mhm. And that comes because he's driven by faith and mercy and compassion, right? Rahma, which we know is a beautiful attribute of God and of us in our best ways of being. He's also driven by civic justice, right? Because he knows the people who they had captured, he could easily have them killed as prisoners of war. But if they have skills and talents that are useful to the Prophet's community, useful to the Muslim community at that time, why not use those talents? That's civic rights, civic justice. He then uses the prisoners and invites them to have their life if they will teach people to read and write. And in the process, the result becomes he's got a community of more people who are literate and can be successful and build a life. So, yes, he was a religious leader. Yes, he is our model for what is the best of Islam, but he's also our model for civic rights and justice as well. I'll tell you my story. It's a story everybody knows, but we don't often think of it like the civic justice lens. It's the story of when they cleaned the Kaaba and they were bringing in the black stone, and all of the Meccan leaders wanted to be the one who carried in the black stone. And of course, they were arguing over it, and they were, at the borderline of great anger. And they said, "Fine, whoever walks in through the door next will decide who gets to lift the black stone." And they waited, and it was the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam who came in. And you know the story. What did they call him?
They called him the most truthful.
Yeah, al Sadiq al Amin, right? The most just, the most truthful. And his solution was that they would have a cloth, put the black stone in the middle, and then they would all be able to lift that cloth. We know that story to be a story of justice. We know that story to be a story of his faith. But do we realize that that's a story of a civic justice leader? Civic justice means making our neighborhood, our community, our nation, our entire ummah better, safer, more just. All of us can be civic justice leaders in our communities, in our neighborhoods. And the Prophet is that model of civic justice. And at the time of Abraham Lincoln, he intended to be a civic justice leader. And then today, we have many people who are learning about and growing into civic justice leaders. I know you are part of clubs and organizations. Is there something you joined and your only reason to join was because you knew you could use it to make a better world?
Well, so before this pandemic and everything, I had joined robotics just to get like the people in my school, because I used to go to another school before, which was down in like the southern sides of Chicago, and we had an all girls team to show that even like us, we could become innovators and we can influence the world.
Absolutely. And you did it to make one, equity between women and men, right? To show what women had talents for, etc. That is civic justice between people to show that everyone has talents and skills and can do good work. And then to create and be innovative and build something great for the world, right? And that is also to create a better world. And so these are the things we think about. I'm going to share a little bit about today's world. What are the parts of civic justice? Because many people will ask, "Oh, you're in civics and politics, right?" And I say, Yes and no. And we'll explain that. Or people will say, oh, civics, that's about voting, civic engagement, that's about voting, right? And I'll say, yes, and more. And so what I'm going to do is share my screen and share a little bit about our organization, the Illinois Muslim Civic Coalition. And you can all just follow along very easily. ilmuslimciviccoalition.org is the website, ilmuslimciviccoalition.org. And right on the front of the website, we talk about what is civic justice. And civic justice is all of this put together. We are going to tell the story, and we are telling the story of a vibrant Muslim community. How are we going to tell it? We're going to tell it by policies, by building and helping create policies that are just for all people. And I'll explain what that means in just a few minutes. We're going to tell our story by being voters who vote in good elected officials that will help our communities, all communities. We're going to tell it by counting in the census. We're going to tell our story by engaging officials, telling them about our organizations and the good work the Turkish community is doing, the Rohingya community is doing, the Syrian community is doing, and all our communities are doing. We're going to make ourselves better at civic leadership. We're going to understand it more. And of course, we have to understand ourselves. So who are we? We're going to learn more about ourselves through reports and studies. So civic justice or civic engagement isn't just one thing. We have to be willing to do it all because they all connect to one another. And what's the end result? So why do we care about civic justice? You know what? It's to tell our American Muslim story. Did you know that 28% of American Muslims are Black or African American? That's the largest number, 28%. Sometimes we don't even realize this. And many times I've spoken with Governor Pritzker, Mayor Lightfoot, many other elected officials. And you know what they say? Oh, that surprises me. Muslims are the most diverse faith in America. No other faith has a pie chart that looks like this. Did you know that, Bahar?
No, that's very surprising to me.
Right. And the second largest group is Asian and South Asian. The third and fourth largest group are Arab and white. And remember, often in our census, Arabs are counted as white. That's something we have to change. And then some of our fastest growing community is Latino, Hispanic community, and Native American, and African immigrants. So what a diverse, rich community we have. And did you know Illinois has one of the largest Muslim populations of any of the states in America?
Yeah, because like even off the streets when you're walking, you see another hijabi, you're like, Assalamu alaikum, hi. And they say back.
So in our gut, we know that, and our community knows that. In fact, Chicagoland has more Muslims per capita than any other city, metropolitan city in the nation. Even more than New York, even more than New Jersey, even more than Los Angeles or Texas, or Houston or any other place. Chicago has the largest per capita. So here we are, this very vibrant place we live in where there are so many of us and we're doing such amazing things. And we have many needs. We have challenges as well, right? That's the story we need to tell. And that's the story that people need to understand. We also want to share that not only are we diverse, but let's take a look at this story. How long is our story? Many people think that it started in the 1900s when many of our families came to America as immigrants. And the thing is, no, our American Muslim story started in the 1600s. Between 1600 and 1700s, we think 20%, or actually the data tells us up to 20% of all enslaved Africans brought to this nation identified as Muslim. And we know this because in plantation homes, there's Arabic scrolled on the walls of the slave cabins. We know this because there are some slave histories and biographies that we can read today. We know this because did you know George Washington talked about Mohammedans, and Thomas Jefferson owned a Quran and had slaves that were Muslim. And so our story goes back hundreds of years in America. We helped build our nation. And in the 1800s, more of our community came. In the 1900s, many of our families came. And now in the years 2000 and above, Muslims are about 2 to 3% of the American population. We are teachers like me, students like you, doctors, Uber drivers, factory workers, right? All kinds of community members. And we are good neighbors. We are civic justice activists. We help make our communities better. During COVID-19, you talked about COVID-19. Our community struggled because we had poor Muslims who got COVID. We had refugee and displaced Muslims who got COVID. We had many communities of color that got COVID. But our communities were also the doctors, the nurses, and the leaders in the front line that served the patients, that took care of the patients, and many of them, they got COVID as well. So this was a challenge for our community during COVID, for both on the patient side and on the doctors who became patients side. So you see how our community is so diverse, so vibrant, and we have to take care of all of these things. And so I wanted to share our story because sometimes we Muslims, we don't even know our story in America. And you know, you learned US history, you're in 8th grade right now. Did you learn anything about Muslims when you were learning about US history?
No.
Why not? Right? Don't you want to take that one pager to school and show them?
Yeah.
Why are we teaching this, right? And you go to a school that has many Muslims in it.
Yeah.
So we have to be proud of our story. We have to be proud of the work we are doing in our communities. And we have to share that story. That's civic engagement. That when we meet people, when we're at schools, when we're at work, people know who we are and they know the good work that we've done, right? Do we have challenges?
Yes.
Let's name a few. What are some challenges as civic justice warriors we're going to have to fix in the next few years? What are some challenges our community have?
So like if we have an opinion and it's an opinion that is right, like for example, equality to all, but some people say they're biased and they're like, oh no, we think we're better. Like even arguing with those people, trying to get them to the better mindset, that's just an example.
I think that's a great example, right? Equality for all, equity, people who believe that there isn't a superior race. Like right now, we call it white supremacy.
Mm-hmm.
It's the single most biggest challenge we're facing right now in our nation is people who think they're better because of their skin color,
Yeah.
or because of their name, or because of their religion, because they believe in Christianity or something. And what we're trying to all say is, no, we're all different, but America is better because we're all different, right? In many other countries in the world, it's not okay to be different. Not only is it discriminated against, but you could be hurt and killed. Even in our countries back home, that
Mm-hmm.
many of your families come from, many of my family comes from, and other families come from, it's not safe to go back to those countries. So we have to strive here in America to make it a better country. And that striving is not a political striving. I'm not saying vote for this person or vote for that person. I'm saying vote for the person that has the core values of humility, service, justice, equity, right? Find those people and vote for them, not because they're Democrat, not because they're Republican, not because they're an independent party, but because they're good people. And we hope some of those good people come from our communities. I hope one of those good people will be you one day and you will run for office. Like, girlfriend, you're like 13. You're already moderating a session on civic justice. I say you run for office in about 5 years and I will help you and be your campaign team on your campaign team. How about that?
Yes, I would love that.
That's awesome. And that's part of it, right? We get excited about not just, we get excited about voting, great. We get excited about policies, great. But we also get excited about changing as part of the system, being part of the system. And just like some people have jobs that are doctors who want to change the system from within, or I'm an entrepreneur. I run a tech startup called vpeer.com. Look it up because I wanted to change the way mentoring happens. You could change the way that our systems work for communities, and you could run for office. I ran for office 3 years ago. I ran for Illinois State Representative. There were 4 people who had run. I came in second. And I would tell you, yeah, I came in second. And then, the party said to me, you raised money from Jews and Christians and Muslims. You got votes from Black people and white people and brown people. You're a bridge builder. And, we're sorry you didn't win this time, but will you run again? Now, I haven't chosen to run again. I actually love the work we're doing with the coalition and preparing other people to run, in talking about civic justice, in promoting voting and policy in our community. I like that work. But then I see people like you, and then I think, aha, okay, I ran. We got this far. It was a historic race. I came in number 2. Other people I know ran, Abdul Nasser Rashid, Azam Nizamuddin. They also didn't win, came in very close. Some people ran, Sadia Covert, and she's a DuPage County board member now, a Muslim woman. We have a woman in Peoria, Rita Ali, who's running for mayor. So we have many people running, some winning, and then we'll prepare and get it all ready for you. How about that?
That would be perfect.
Yeah. So, when we talked about, so what are some of the problems we're facing? We are facing equality issues. We are facing discrimination. Almost 50% or more of Muslim students say they've been bullied at school. So that isn't just about voting, right? We're not going to vote out bullying, but we can have policies and laws for bullying. So I'm going to share my screen again and ask our community, our Turkish community, which is a beautiful community in Chicagoland and across the state, to do 3 things with us. Ready? The first thing is going to be learn a little bit about our 4 bills. We have 4 bills in session. Let's go through those bills very quickly. One is Diversity for Illinois Amendment. You talked about everybody saying that we are equal and just. Every time somebody gets elected, they have to now raise their hands and say, I promise to protect and honor the diversity of people and communities in Illinois. That doesn't exist right now in our oath. It is very important to make every elected official promise to protect the diversity, right? And when the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam did his last sermon speech did tell us to make sure that we kept our prayers strong, to make sure that we kept our faith strong. But it also said, no one is above one another. No Black is above a white, no white is above a Black, no Arab is above a non-Arab, and no non-Arab is above an Arab. He was very clear about diversity being a hallmark of the Islamic faith. And some of the first people who accepted Islam was a woman, his wife, was a 13-year-old, his nephew, your comrade, your compatriot, and people who were Black and brown and poor, right? Along with people who were rich and well known. And so it's very important that at the time of the Prophet, we had a reverence for diversity and a reverence for everybody's unique life stage. And in Illinois, we have a bill that our community, the Muslim community, has introduced that is a reverence for diversity bill. And so when we share information about the reverence for diversity bill or bias-based bullying, which is cross-cultural mediation, this is Anti-Bullying Act, we call it, or inclusive athletic attire, so that when you're playing a sport, whether you're a woman or a man, a girl or a boy, you should be able to play the sport in a uniform that you feel comfortable in, that you feel meets your faith needs, right? And then our last bill is contributions and history of Muslims in America. I asked you earlier, did you learn about Muslims as you were learning in 8th grade? And you said no. And I said, why not? Right? Right now in America, some of the greatest artists are Muslims. The tallest building in the world for decades was the Sears Tower, whose chief architect was a Chicago Muslim man. We have so many things that Muslims have done in the world today. COVID vaccine was first developed by a Turkish German couple, right? So why don't we understand the contributions and the history of Muslims? So we have a, excuse me, a bill about that. This is all civic justice. If the Prophet was here today, I believe he would have been proud of these bills. And in his time, he did similar things. He put laws and policies into effect that worked and supported all people. And today, we are trying to do the same thing. So for all of us in the Turkish community, all of us watching this today, when the Illinois Muslim Civic Coalition puts out information about these bills, and Dina Habal, who's watching today, is our lead communications director. She'll put out information on our social media, and she'll tag Bahar and Brother Ali and the Imam, and then you will all make sure that these bills get passed. Together we'll do it, right? So that's our first ask, is the bills. The second ask is to vote again. In 2020, Bahar, we made voting important. In 2021, we have to make voting a habit. Do you know many people who voted in 2020?
My parents voted.
Mm-hmm. Was it one of their first times?
Yeah.
Okay. More Muslims voted in 2020 than ever before. But that's not enough. Voting happens every year, and we have to vote every year. And the elections in 2021, do you know when they are?
It was in November, I think.
Yeah, but not in 2021. The elections are not in November in 2021. The elections are April 6th. April 6th. That is like 7 weeks away, right? 7 weeks away. So our second ask for the community is to vote for the April 6th elections. And if you just go down our landing page, it says make a vote plan. Confirm you're registered, number one. Decide if you want to vote early or vote on the day, because you can go early and vote. Review your personalized ballot. See who's on your ballot. Then vote, make sure you vote, and then go tell 10 more people. Wait a minute. I know you think November is voting, but it's not. It's right now. And so you can vote, you have to vote in April. And so the timeline is right here, and the vote plan is right here. We'd like everybody right now to go and click on this, save the image, put it on their desktop, and then, or print it out and make your checklist of doing these things. And actually, if you just click on our site, it'll take you to check all of these things off, confirm your registration, all of this stuff. So our second ask is vote. And our third ask is, in about 1 month, The survey is going to go out asking all Illinois Muslims to tell us about themselves so we could have a report on Illinois Muslims, our needs, our impact, our demographics, and then that way we can understand our community. And Bahar, you're going to get that report. Are you going to make sure you get it out to everybody to do the survey?
Yes, all my friends, my family members.
All your friends, all your family members. Muslims are some of the youngest populations of residents in America. And so we need the under 30 to make sure that they are filling out this survey and that we understand their needs and their successes, right? So you talked about needs like equality. That's true. But can I also say some of our needs are mental health?
Yes, of course.
These are challenging times. We're dealing with COVID and unemployment and finances and family issues. And we're hurting, and our community needs support. Our community needs funding from the government to not to come to our community so that we can have mental health support, so that we can have unemployment support if we need it, all of that. You know, what do you think is another problem our community is dealing with?
Aside from equality, like as you said, mental health, because with the pandemic and like older like teens, they're going through stuff, and they're even with like online bullying, it's cyberbullying, it's very bad.
Yeah. And that's one of the reasons our bill for anti-bullying is about mediation. Because if you just punish the bully, they just grow up hating you even more and it doesn't change their behavior. We actually have to get help and support for the person being bullied, but we also
Yes.
need to change the behavior of the bully. And you don't just change behavior by punishing, you have to do punishment as well as learning.
Hmm.
Right. So I agree with you 100%. And are you finding cyberbullying is a challenge?
I mean, I don't really interact with people on other people on social media that I don't know, only my friends, but I've heard a couple of stories from
Good.
other people.
But what you're doing is using social media safely. And that's another thing we have to teach all of us, young people and older people. Sometimes my mom, she came to me today and she said, Amazon just sent me a text. It says, click here because I won something. And I said, Mommy, don't click there. Don't click there. She's like, but I won something on Amazon. Amazon's a reputable company. And I said, yeah, but they didn't send that to you. Somebody else sent that to you. So don't click there. So we need to teach all our community members to be safe online, right?
Yeah.
Um, absolutely. Another thing we need to help is we need to have communities that are safer for all people, safer for all people. We have communities where often Black, brown, refugee, and displaced communities live where they can't get fresh foods near their home.
Yeah.
They can't get healthy things to put on their table. And if you don't have a car and you can't get into your car and drive 2 miles to a market, then you go down the street and all you can get is canned goods in the corner market in the street.
Hmm.
So I think we need to have neighborhoods that are safer, that have good food for our communities, that have playgrounds where children can play and grow and interact. I think all communities have to do that.
Yeah.
You and I are lucky. We probably live in neighborhoods where there is a park down the street. We probably live in a neighborhood where we can go easily and get good food and groceries. But that's
Yeah.
not enough. Being a civic engagement and civic justice warrior means we have to fight to make sure everybody can do that. Not
Yeah.
just my family, not just your family, but that all families can do this. Isn't that what you're building in your robotics lab? Opportunities for everybody to succeed?
Yes.
Yeah. What's one thing you're doing in your robotics lab?
This was last year, but like 2 years ago, but we had to like create something for astronauts so that they could like have stuff in outer space that could even help them with their bodies and keep them entertained. Because like they were in, when astronauts go up, they're in something like a pandemic too. They stay inside, they can't go out, they can't communicate with other people.
That's fascinating. And maybe that kind of technology will later be used for the rest of us because we are in situations where we're isolated from others.
Yes.
It's great. Did anything we talk about today surprise you about civic justice?
This isn't about civic justice, but like when you said that our religion had the most diverse amount of people, like from Black people to Latino to white to Arab, like that was very interesting.
Mhm. Do you think we have some work to do in our own religion to be good to each other, to be better to each other?
Much because tradition is different from religion, and we need to know how to separate those.
Absolutely. And many times in Chicagoland, I'll go to a center and somebody will say, that's the, Syrian center, or that's the, Turkish center. I would love for one day for someone to say, that is a center for all Muslims,
Yes.
and that we would see everybody. And there's nothing wrong with having a space for your culture. In fact, I love the Turkish community, how along the wall you have all of the different nations and artifacts from the different nations in each cabinet. And so if somebody in our viewers hasn't been to the Turkish Center up in, is it Mount Prospect? I
Yeah.
forget the suburb, Mount Prospect, right? Okay, then definitely go because it's one of the most beautiful places of worship in the city, alhamdulillah. And I love visiting it and I love the community there. But it's okay to love your culture, but it's also important to be inclusive and welcoming to everybody else. And even in our own faith tradition, we see that the Prophet welcomed everybody and he set that example. And yet we don't always welcome everybody. We
Yeah.
don't always welcome people who have special needs into our communities. We don't always welcome women to have an equal say as men in our communities. We don't
Yes.
often take care of the convert and the needs of someone who's new to our faith. And we don't often support those whose skin color is different than ours in our faith. We have our own issues with racism as Muslims, and we have to work on all of that.
Yes.
And that is all part of civic engagement and civic justice within our community and outside our community with our greater American neighbors.
Mm-hmm.
So both. Anything that you're walking away with that you're like, I'm going to remember this?
I'm very like uh it's very cool that you ran for office, and then like as a like even as a hijabi woman, the representation that you give for us Muslims, that's very cool. And I'm a recent hijabi too, so that's very inspiring.
Great, great. Is actually when I put on my hijab, I was 18 years old, and my father said to me, "Why are you wearing it? We're in America." And he was a man who wanted his daughter to be strong and who wanted his daughter to feel free and safe, right? And so he came from a culture where he didn't necessarily, the women didn't have to wear hijab often. And so he said, don't wear it. I want you to be safe. I want you to be okay. And I said to him, Daddy, because I am a strong American woman and I am your daughter, I can wear my scarf and do everything that I want to do in this world, inshallah, with your du'as and with God's grace and with my effort. And so that was many, many years ago. I won't tell you how long. But when I was 18, I put it on, and it hasn't always been easy. I think anybody is like, oh, it's easy. It hasn't always been easy. There have been times when it's been a struggle. Um, but I love our identity as American Muslim women who come from a cultural heritage, who come from families that can be strong, who come out of challenges and into hope, inshallah. And we have brothers and husbands and fathers who support us.
Mhm.
And we find the right friends to support us. We build our sisters around us, right? Sisters and brothers around us. Yeah. So life won't be easy. Working towards civic justice is not easy. But when I meet people like you, I have a lot of hope. And when I know the history of American Muslims is so strong and rich and diverse and complex and challenging and complicated, I say, bring it on. Let's do this. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is on our side. We have a prophet as our role model who is amazing. And we have a community, an ummah that is beautiful. Inshallah. Any other questions for me?
I want to read the YouTube chat. So people are saying, thank you so much. It's great to see you. And this person, it really stood out to me. It says, yes, we can't just be non-racist. We should be anti-racism.
Yeah. Be fighters of anti-racism. Fighters for anti-racism. Absolutely. Who else? What else are people asking?
They're asking for your social media and
Oh, yes. So please, if there's,
they want to reach out.
yeah, my email is dilarasaeed@gmail.com. So it's very simple. My first name, my last name @gmail.com. And I'm on Facebook. Even though I'm trying to take a little bit of a break on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram because it's a very busy time before the elections and the bills that we're trying to promote. So I'm trying to focus on that. But as I said, Dina is working on our communications. Madia Muzaffar works on our advocacy and policy work. Rima Kamran is my co-founder and great friend, and she does so much of the operations support. And then we have Roa Hussein. I don't know if you know Roa Hussein. She is our voter engagement. So every week on Saturdays, we're going to do phone banking for the voters to get hundreds and thousands of voters out from every neighborhood. So if you're interested in being part of the phone banking, we have a lot of fun phone banking. We do it over Zoom, and we have good music, and we tell jokes while we're talking to people, and it's a lot of fun. If you would like to be a volunteer, just please email info at ilmuslimciviccoalition.org. And so is there a way you can put that in the chat or something? But also, if you just go to our website, you'll see all of that information right there on our website, ilmuslimciviccoalition.org. And there's many organizations that do very good work. And the Turkish community is a huge partner of ours. And so we'll have a lot of information out over the next few weeks about the 4 bills, about voting, and just to make sure that you stay connected with us.
Yes. So somebody else said lies and flattering are very common. How can we avoid this in politics?
That's a really good question. And that's why, remember, one of the first things I said is it's not about voting Democrat. It's not about voting Republican. It's not about voting for a party. It's about voting for core values. And so we are trying very hard to look at each candidate that's running for especially the major offices, asking them questions about specific issues that they care about in education, in immigration, in equality and equity, in about the work that we do for safer neighborhoods. So we are asking those kinds of questions of our different candidates. I'm going to be honest with you. Politics is one of those spaces where there is lying and where there is um, people who want to be in it for power that is not always good power, right?
Yeah.
That is not always good for everyone. But our job has to be to find and use power for good. Power is not a bad word. Power is not a bad thing. We have to use power for good. And so I don't have an easy answer for that question. It's a great question. But the more we are in it, the more Muslims are a part of the political process, the more we use our core values of equity and service and justice and infuse them into the political system, that's when we'll have a better system. We don't have a better system because we stay out of it. If good people stay out of politics, who does that leave in politics?
The bad guys.
That's right. But imagine a Bahar Quran running for office, right? Imagine, right, a Sadia Covert in office. Imagine a Dilara Sayeed in office. Like, we hope we are running for the right reasons, and we hope that then we build a better system, right? So when I see many of these amazing people and who are running for office who are good people, then it makes me very happy. And then I know that we're not going to get better if we stay out of it, right? Who's someone that you'd love to see in office from your community?
Um, Anybody actually, just any Muslim.
Yeah, there's a lot of good people out there, right? So
Mhm.
let's prepare them and get them ready. Because as your questioner asked, how do we get, yes, there are lies. Yes, there is deceit. The way to get around that is putting good people in who don't lie and who aren't deceitful.
Yeah. I have a question for you. So, in the beginning, when I was reading your bio, it said that you were a founder of VPeer, and then, like, how did you decide to like start this, and how did you also start like getting into politics?
So I'll answer the second question first. I didn't get into politics for the sake of politics. I actually never thought in my life I would run for office. You know how people say, oh, I always wanted to run for office and then I ran for office? I never wanted to run for office. I didn't think about running for office, but I saw a gap. I saw a problem. I saw that we didn't have representation. I finished telling you Illinois has one of the largest and most diverse Muslim populations in the nation. Did you know that Illinois has 0 people at our state legislature that identify as Muslim? 0 people that identify as Middle Eastern. 1 person that identifies as South Asian. So these are huge gaps. And this was an open seat, meaning that nobody who has been in the seat was going to run again. And so then I ran in an open seat as an educator, a former teacher, and someone who knew, because I taught US history, knew the history of our nation and the political system well, right? So alhamdulillah, like I said, it was a good race, a historic race, but because I learned more, I ran, I didn't win, but because of that, I was able to then begin the Illinois Muslim Civic Coalition with all our partners, and inshallah, we will continue to do good work. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best what the plan is meant to be, right? And how did I start VPeer? Again, I think the best things happen when you are part of the world, you are looking around and you see a problem. And you're not just someone who says, I see a problem. You're someone who says, I see a problem and I think I have a solution. I'm going to work to help solve that problem, right? Whether it's the environment, whether it's robotics because there's something you want to build for astronauts, whatever that might be. What I saw was, as a teacher, I know that we spend time helping students with peers and classroom environments and mentoring from pre-K through to the end of their school years. But once you get out in the real world, many people are working remotely. Many people do not have colleagues around them all the time. Many people don't want to ask the colleagues that they're around all the time, hey, I don't get this. Can you help me? Right? And so, who is mentoring us after we are in the real world and in our jobs? And so VPeer is virtual peers, and it is a platform for professional social media. So a platform right now where we have 1,000 Muslim school teachers and administrators who talk about issues and then work together to solve and share good ideas. There's another network on the platform of people who work in mental health fields. And so then they are mental health specialists, but now they talk to each other and they share ideas and they provide support and mentoring for each other to do their work better. So VPeer is a peer-to-peer mentoring platform for coaching and for professional growth. So I saw a problem. I felt I had a solution. And then when I went to Harvard University for my doctorate, Harvard University gave me a 1-year internship residency in their accelerator, which means I got support, time in the iLab, Harvard iLab, and we built VPeer at Harvard. And then when I came back here to Chicago, we launched it.
That's so cool. Do you have like anything you want to tell the younger Muslims, like teens, anything?
Yeah. I'm so hopeful because of you. It's been a tough few years. Last year was hard. This year doesn't seem to be a whole lot easier.
Yeah.
But I look at the young people. I look at those in school. I look at those in high school. I look at those in college, and I feel a lot of hope. You are strong. You are resilient. Life isn't easy, but you're finding a way to stay close to your creator and keep your faith. You're finding a way to be respectful to your parents and to your brothers and your sisters and your family. You're finding a way to make this a better world, like Bahar, others of you who are doing projects and joining initiatives that are making this a better world. That gives us all a lot of hope. Make sure you take time to take care of yourself. If you need to sleep longer, sleep longer. If you need to just spend some time relaxing, do that. If you can put your phone down for maybe 2 hours a day or 3 hours a day where you're not plugged all the time, try that. Sometimes going for a walk, looking out the window, reading a book, just closing your eyes and breathing in and out for 5 minutes. These are all ways that we find peace in our life. Again, the Prophet did that. He went to the cave of Hira when he felt overwhelmed with life, and he would spend a day in the cave or two. He would take lunch and breakfast and dinner and spend a couple of days in the cave. Remember that he would take time and sit on the prayer rug, even after prayer ended, and just breathe and make dua. And remember, he spent time playing with his grandchildren and his children. So take time to play, to relax, then work hard and change the world, because we need you to make it better. Inshallah.
Inshallah. Yes, so we have another question from the chat. It says, Gen Z is so much into technology, but mostly the entertainment oriented. How much are you hopeful about this generation to embrace civic work or civic injustice?
Yeah. Well, okay, so you're entertainment oriented, right? So why don't you create a 10-second video on voting and post it on Instagram? You're entertainment oriented, right? Why don't you guys make a TikTok or two, and you please send it to the coalition. We will blast it everywhere. Create a TikTok on voting, create a TikTok on one of the bills, create a TikTok on something you care about in the world and that should change, right? So I don't think there's anything wrong with having fun, being creative. In fact, your generation has that creativity capacity because you have so much at your fingertips with social media, and you know all the tools, like how to make a flyer on Canva and how to use Photoshop and all of this. Like, I had to learn all that. You already know, you already know all this at a, at a very young age. But use any of those tools to promote good work, civic work, our faith. Take your favorite ayah of the Quran and turn it into calligraphy online, right? Take your favorite verse or hadith from the Prophet and the story and tell it on Instagram or TikTok. Act it out. So I think there's so many ways you could like promote civic justice through all of the media that you have. You don't have to just be consumers of media, be creators of media. And when you create media and you take a snap or a Snapchat, when you do a Snapchat of something you see that's really good that's happening in the world. Or do a snapshot chat of like, hey, look, I'm at the stop sign and the stop sign's broken. We need to fix the stop sign. And then tag your mayor and your local alderman or your neighborville or your neighborhood trustee, and then tell them about what's going on in the neighborhood. Sometimes they don't know, and you are the one who tells them. So yeah, be a creator of content for media that makes this a better world.
Yes.
I challenge you.
Yes. So thank you for your speech. It was very wonderful. I got a lot of information, and most likely the people watching got very informed as well. It's almost 9. Thank you for your time. And we would love to see you again.
Inshallah, thank you. Let's make dua for our families, our communities, our nations across the world, and let's do the work that it takes for us to have a better world. Let's be civic justice activists, all of us, inshallah.
Sure.
Thank you, Bahar. I've thoroughly enjoyed getting to know you.
Thank you. Me too. It was really nice to meet you.
Assalamu alaikum.